Hello, everyone. So it's time to get Winter Queen out again. Get some stitches on her. I need to get at least 300 stitches on her each month. So, and I said in my previous update that I wanted to show you how I do beading, how I do couching, and since I'm currently stitching on her, I might also do some 1/1 skin. We'll see what we have the time for. So I have covered up some of the pattern, so you don't see everything, but I thought, but it's nice to that you can at least see some of it for the couching. And up in the corner here, this is for my beads, because I use tacky bob. I think that's what they called, to hold my beads. So I am just marking, kind of drawing where I'm gonna have the different beads with the numbers, and the symbols are like inside. So it's gonna be fairly easy when I get to beading. And I haven't put the beads in the tacky bob yet. It looks like this. You open up and inside it's sticky. And as you can see, it's starting to get dirty. I have had this for a good while, and I have tried to just wash it a smidge, because I had an accident where my son had like a woolen sweater on him, and he was coming to give me a hug, and the sweater kind of stuck to the sticky part. So yeah. So I will show you how I do that. So I usually use this bottom part that has like a little bit of side to it, but you can also use the top part. That's also sticky. So, but for this one, I don't have that many beads, so there's no problem having all of them on this, because I'm just gonna do a small section at a time. I bead as I go, so I kind of don't need like a big area to have the beads. So when we get to beading, I will show all of that. But first, I thought we could do the couching. So what I did with couching is that the number 8 braid is really thick for 32 count. I don't like how it's stitched up with the with doing normal backstitching, so I decided to do couching, which, if you have ever done a dimensions kit, they use that technique a lot. And what you do, you have this one strand that is on the top, and then you have a second strand of a similar color. I just decided to use DMC E168. It's one of the metallics. You can also, for this color, I could have used E415, but it was a little bit darker, and this is more platinum, but it's lighter in the color, so I decided to go with the lighter one, because then you really aren't going to see the you can't really tell this is being couch most of the places. You can see it a little bit here, a tiny bit, but it's not like super visible, and it looks like the same color stitched up, so it's no big deal. So then I need to cut a length of the DMC metallic. So I don't cut long lengths because that will just give you trouble. And I hope I can flip this over without knocking you over, so I'm not sure you will be able to see where I'm around here. So I'm just gonna secure the metallic at the back, and what I do, I also make a little knot on the DMC metallics at the, I can't do that on camera, do the little knot. So here is the knot, and so I do a tiny knot, and then I do one more, because that stops the metallic from fraying, and DMC is one of the worst when it comes to that. So every time I use this DMC metallic, I will always do this. And since it's so close to the eye of the needle, it really, it doesn't make any problems for me having that tiny knot. And sometimes you just need to go and tighten it a little bit because it can start to get loose. And then the other end will be secured, so it's not a big problem. So that's how I use DMC metallics, and that's why I don't find them a big problem to work with, because of that technique. I think it was Carolyn Mascio. She has a floss tube about that, how she uses metallics. So that's where I got the knowledge to do that. So couching, what you do is in each of the places where you normally would have gone down to do the back stitch, you instead are going to couch the floss. So this first one, if you can see, is 2 over and 1 down. So I will go up in that hole, and then I make sure the floss is between the needle and the length, and I go down the same hole. I don't tug on it hard, I just give a small tug, and then it's secured on the fabric. And when I do backstitching, I do like very small sections very often, because I don't like when there's like long sections with backstitching. I kind of like to divide it into smaller sections, and with the couching I just do this the same basically. But you can, like now I'm at this place, I could go down and just do a couching stitch here, so I can show you. So then it's going to be here, always making sure that the floss will be between the couching. As you can see, now it's lays there. So, and then the next time it's gonna be here. So 1, 2, diagonally 1. So now I'm on this side of the neck. So then I just take my needle under, making sure that the neck is in between the where I'm gonna go up and down like this. And the next time I'm gonna do a couching is gonna be on this one. So 2 over 1 down. And that's if you count on normal stitches. I have 1 over 1 stitching on the skin, so. And then next time I'm gonna do couching is gonna be down here, because this last length, this floss is just gonna go down. There is no need to couch that part, the end. So, and the next I will do this, and I think I will do it from here, go up, just because that's the closest in distance. So the first one, you don't, the neck is gonna come up. So the first time I need to couch is gonna be in this section. And that section is, so 1, 2, 3, 4 from this, and 5 actually, and 1 up. So then I'm gonna put this needle up and just park it on the front while I go down with this length. And then four, and come up in this section. And I just usually try to, like, now I try to put my needle just up to the right, because that's the movement of the backstitching right here. Like you go up to the left and then up to the right afterwards. So just having it there first is just a nice way. And since this is in the spot it's supposed to be, I can just go down and make sure the couching is between. And this time you might want to do an extra tug, because when the DMC metallic has been laying for a while, sometimes it can loosen a little bit, like the last couching stitch you did. So, but it's not a problem. You just need to make sure you give an extra tug to make sure it doesn't get too loose. And if you're wondering why, it's because this tacking isn't that good, because it's a little bit loose, because that's exactly what happened there, and I didn't give it a good tug afterwards. So next one, I'm just gonna do up here, I think. Three, 1, 2, 3. Nope, one too much to the... This is the spot. And I could, if I wanted to, just do the couching there, but I do one in between. It's just, I don't know, it's just a habit, trying to do more often than more rare when couching, because that's when you get the floss to lay exactly how you want it to lay. And that's the last couching stitch. And then I need to go down with this one. Can be a good idea to pull on the correct needle. Just poking it up because I need to secure it on the back. So that was a little bit of couching. I will pause the video and then I will come back to you when I have secured the flosses on the back. It's just the same way I did when I was starting the DMC metallic, how I secured it. I do secure with a Bargello tuck. Maybe I should show that. Okay, I will turn it around and show that. Okay, so there it is. So give it, this is the DMC. So I give it a little tug because, as I said, that one can be a little bit slippery. So you always just, not like a hard tug, just a small tug. So what I do, I go through a few loops. Maybe I can get you even closer to actually see. So I go through, I pull the loop through, and then I go behind the loop, the last loop I went through. I go behind in the same direction, and then I do just a few more loops, and I pull, and that is called a Bargello tuck. And now this isn't moving. And if you are doing things like rayon, or sometimes even some silks can be really slippery, then if you want to, you can do the same one more time. So you kind of do two Bargello tucks like this, and then that floss is not going anywhere at all. So cut that off, and then it's the Krynic. And when I saw the explanation of how you should think about saying the word Krynic, it always makes me a little bit sad, because what you should think about is cry and nick. And nick is often used as a nickname for, like, part of the nickname for Santa Claus, Saint Nick. So it's sad thinking of him crying. Cry Nick. And again, I do the Bargello tuck, if you saw. Then cut the floss, and they are secured. Now I will take a break because I need to do some cleanup before I show you the beading. Okay, so I have found my beading needle, which is just beading needle from Mill Hill. You can buy them in packs of 2. But this is literally from one of my Mill Hill kits. Like, you get a beading needle in each of the Mill Hill kits. So one of them I have done. Like, I don't tarnish my needles very much. So as you can see, it's super shiny. Sometimes it's a little bit bent, but I don't care about it being a little bit bent because that always happens to all my needles. So as long as they're not tarnished and like being difficult going down, I just keep them. So the tacky bob, as you can see, we have it here down here. So and then you have Mill Hill, how they come. I usually try to take my, just put my finger in between, rip the side here, and the same on this. And then you can open it and do it carefully. Sometimes they can really pop. There's a bead on that side. And the top left corner is going to be the blue beads. I'm not sure if I'm able to do this. I may need to do this. And then I will just gently pour a few beads on. Then I close it and I put it to the side. And then I just move the beads so all of them is hitting the sticky part. So that if anything happens while I'm doing this, the beads will not fall off. Like, I can lose this in the floor and most of the beads will stay there. Maybe 1 or 2 will jump off, but not that many. For sure. So next one is these white Petite beads. And then the Petite silver ones. I don't know if you can see that pouring out, but it's just basically what I already have done. The 2 colors above. I didn't get that many white on there, but I guess it's fine. I can always add more if I end up having too few. It's not a big deal. Well, always so impressive how massive those looks after we have done the petite ones. So there, my tacky bob is all set. And usually what I do is I will, since I'm beading on my omnic frame and I roll it so I stitch in the ditch, I just lay my tacky bob on top of the fabric down, laying against the omnic. It's not going anywhere. So, and often I will also like have my scissors here, which I have this time. It's under the tacky bob. I would just lay stuff on my fabric where there's nothing that is going to be stitched in that section. So it's fine. Okay, Now, there's 3 ways of securing the beads that I know of. And I think it's important to say that I know of, because there might be more that I just don't know. So one of them is using DMC color. And you can then try to match the DMC color with the beads. Mill Hill has a conversion from beads to DMC. I think it's Mill Hill that has that conversion. So it's really easy to go there and see what the DMC conversion would be, because then you can use that color to match the beads. Or you can match the color to the fabric that you are going to secure with. So in this case, this is just a white fabric, so I could have done just white to secure, but I don't use DMC to secure my beads. The other way of securing beads is using nylon floss. I got some from eBay. And then again, you can either match the fabric or you can match the beads. These are really nice to use, but these are really hard to come by in Norway. So, and these are easier to use than what I am going to use. So, what I am going to use, which is the third option, is invisible floss. I just went to my local sewing shop, not cross-stitching shop, sewing shop, because they have in black if you are stitching on darker fabric. Sometimes when I do the small Mill Hill kits, the perforated paper is really dark, or like the other colors around are dark, then I will use the black one. But today, since I'm stitching a white, I'm gonna use the white one. And as it's being pulled out, it's totally invisible. And some people find this really hard to work with. And I also did in the beginning, but now I'm kind of used to it, so it's not that big of a deal for me. So I have a length here the last time I stitched, so I'm just going to use that first. Last time I beaded. And I temporarily have to move away my tacky bob. It's gonna go back. So what I will do is I will thread the needle. This can be a little bit hard and tricky, especially if you don't see much. But usually I will lay the floss between my two of my fingers, because then just getting the floss in there on the needle isn't that big of a problem. And then I will find the other end of the length. So I usually pull out double size of what I think I want. So I find the two ends. Oh, my camera is not gonna cooperate with me today. Can you focus? Not that I think you will see much, because it's invisible floss. So I take the two ends, I match them up, and what I will do is I will wrap them around my finger, so I create a loop, and then I will pull them both ends inside the loop and then tighten. And then I will do that 2 or 3 more times because this floss is really slippery. This floss is really slippery, so if you make knots, like, it will loosen itself. This floss is really slippery, so I will usually do 3 times. So then I have 2 that is like on each other and 1 that is just down below. And then I tighten it while holding the needle in one end and the 2 ends in the other, because then it's the halfway point. And then I need to find out where I want to secure. There is some loose stitches up here, as you can see. So I think I'm gonna secure down here because I need to was down here, wasn't it? You can see I need to move you. So, and then I go a pretty decent amount away. I will pull, and I will try to pull that first knot through the stitches like this. So now the 2 knots are at the side. So you can see my invisible floss is laying here. And then I will do the Bargello tuck that I showed you with the couching. Once, and sometimes you just need to pull the loops of this floss. And then I'm gonna do it one more time. And what I usually do is I use my second hand to kind of hold the floss a little bit tight so I don't release all of it at once. And then when I get to, so this. And then it's always hard when moving because then I'm just pulling it to the front so I can keep it tight between my fingers before pulling it, and then I know I have gotten all of it to the other side. And then, sorry for the wobbling, I'm gonna switch back. Get you in frame. Then I kind of need to go down and up again where it's supposed to be. This is where I'm gonna do the first bead. So that bead is going to be the white Petite bead, and I usually do my beads like the Middle Hill kit says to do them. I do the Petite beads, going through them twice, and the normal sized beads, the normal seed beads, I just go through once. I know a lot of people have some people like to go through twice each and every time, but I like the way Mill Hill encouraged to do it. these that are like don't have a lot of stitches around them can be a little bit hard to find and count. I don't see it as a big problem. And sometimes I will do from the top. And as you can see, with this, I always use one hand to pull it tight. So when I pull it on the back side, I will move my hand to the back and hold the floss tight on the back. When it gets shorter, this isn't like a big thing. I only do that when the lengths are pretty long. And I like to also hold the loop, especially when going through twice, because then what I will do is now I will pull on the loop first, so that first leg is being pulled tight before I pull the second leg off the stitch. And then I will do the speed. I don't think there's a lot more to show you guys, unless you have questions and there's something else you want to see. And with me having the invisible floss, I can stitch whatever color I want. So I don't have to limit myself in the color, because that's one of the things if you use DMC. If I am using DMC, I often tend to like better to use floss that matches the fabric. Because then you can just go ahead and do all of the beading instead of having to have some that are open. Like now there's a lot of white beads here and there's one blue in between. So if I were using the floss that matches the beads, I could not do this blue one because the white floss wouldn't match the bead. You know what? I actually think for this crown, I'm wondering if I'm gonna have everyone just stay up and down and not sideways, going through twice. Yeah, I think I'm gonna do that. Oh no, I have a mistake. And this is gonna be super hard to fix. That's the downside with this floss, is that it's very, very difficult to frog or backtrack the stitches. That's what I get for talking and trying to bead at the same time. It's especially when my concentration isn't that good. And yes, sometimes I will pull at the bead when it's the last leg to get the floss loose. Because this floss, sometimes it's so slippery that you can do that without too much issues. Like you can just kind of, I'm pulling the bead on the bead so the floss goes down and then comes up. So that's one of the good things frogging with this floss. Because or else you might get in a dilemma where the floss will, you didn't go exactly back down how it was from where you had stitched, so it kind of makes a loop between whatever you stitched, where you stitched and didn't stitch, catches on the cross stitches around. If you, that was hard to explain, but yeah, it's as you can see, now I have my hand on the back holding the floss because I just haven't pulled it through yet. So I do it now. Sometimes I will even go up, go down. Sometimes twice, go up, go down before pulling the floss to one side. So what I do with my tacky bob that I haven't showed you when I'm beading, if we can get tacky bob to lay there, stay, hope it will stay there. So what I do now, I have my needle, the floss is on the front, one hand holding some of the length. Then I will just pick up a needle, a bead on the needle, make it fall onto the floss, and then I can just go ahead and do the first leg. So, pulling the floss through, come up, go a second time through, and then go down, pulling the floss completely through. And also when I'm pulling at the back, I also take my hand and I take the length of the floss and I drag it between my fingers just to see if there's any knots that have happened. And sometimes doing that, one of the lengths, because it's looped, so there's two lengths of invisible floss, like there's kind of two strands. So then one of them sometimes isn't pulled completely through. So when I do this, I just go like this, either on when I have my hand on the back, and then it will usually pull the floss to be equal again. Sometimes I can even go through the bead right down into the hole in one movement. That's when you're starting to get fancy with your beading. So last leg I went down here. So usually I always start my stitches here, but very often with beading I have to do the opposite, just because you don't want to go up where you just went down, because then it's just coming out again. And I'm sorry for all the wobbling. To be able to do this filming and for you to be able to see, I sit a little bit like wonky. So I'm just hitting my stand. And the stand is like right up next to the chair that is holding holding the tripod, which holds the phone. So when I hit something, everything wobbles. Everything. And one of the hardest thing with beading with the invisible floss is now when you don't have any cross stitches to kind of rely on, because sometimes it can be hard to see which hole you came up and which you came down. So you're kind of like guessing as to where you're supposed to place your next bead. I had a lot of that on Cinderella, so some of it now I remember that's the place I'm gonna go. Sometimes I need to count from other spaces, and some is better than other. Like this is a fairly, you can see this hole has been pulled, so I know this is like the beginning of a stitch. So then I can use that to my advantage. And usually I don't like to bead upwards, because then the beads are in the way of my view, which is already difficult because of the invisible floss. So, but it has its pros and cons using the invisible floss. And I just really like stitching with this, and it makes it so I don't need to. I can do all the stitches I want. Oh, not the stitches, beads. Like I can do the color I want to do. Like I don't have to think about. All I need to think about is getting the correct color, not making holes for other beads. And what you saw there, the floss most likely wrapped around something. So what I will do is I will try to, take the bead because the floss is going through the beads, and I move it away from everything else because then it usually fixes itself. And I know this is gonna be hard to see for me, so I don't want to tighten the floss, but I had to right away before I know which hole to go down. Then it's gonna be a bead here, and I really hope that I did write down the correct colors. I'm always afraid of that. Because like having these silver almost see-through beads up here, it just doesn't make much sense to me, because you're gonna have a hard time to actually see this bead in the middle of nowhere. But it's the correct color. That's how it's supposed to be. So I will do it the way it's supposed to be done. And this is why I like to bead downwards, because as you saw, that is so much easier than beading going up. So this doesn't make sense. That is one, two. That's so the problem is somewhere along the way this bead is standing a little bit higher than it's supposed to be, because this is supposed to connect down here. There's almost that's correct. That's correct. So 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm 1 too high on the beads. Counted incorrectly. So much for this being easier to do down. But for it to be easier to stitch downwards, you actually have to stitch the correct upwards, or count correctly the beads going upwards. And when I take the beads off, the ones that I have to frog, I just put it against the, I put it back on the tacky bob. I can see on the shadows that there's something going on here. It wasn't quite right. Okay. But it's, yeah, so this is a little bit off. I promise you, usually I don't have this much problem with the beading. But as I said, I'm not in a mental state to do beading. I think I will do this one first. And talking at the same time. As I said in my Floss 2 update lately, I can't really watch Floss Tube and stitch at the same time. And then stitching something that takes concentration, like beading, is even worse. But this is still... I think it was correctly the first time. It's just the... As you can see, this bead is a little bit smaller than the other one at this side, so I think that's why it doesn't look quite correct. But this is now in the correct spot because I have double counted that it is. think maybe I'm a half stitch off one of the blue beads, but it's fine. It's placed correctly. That's the most important part. And now with only 4 different colors of beads, I can, like now, only doing these few stitches, I already remember what each color is. So when I see the symbol, I know exactly where I'm going to. I don't need to refer to the little box that I did draw on the pattern. But it's nice to have there, especially when when I do beading, or I'm going to do beading as I go. That is nice. And I have one more pattern that I think I will do beading as I go, and that's Cinderella in Rags and Riches. So my thinking is this side is going to be Winter Queen, and that top part is going to be the beads for Cinderella and Rags and Riches. I think that's only are using like one color, at least the Rags pattern. It's only using gold beads, and I think that's the same. No, maybe Riches has a little bit more colors. But I have to say, it looks good so far. Okay. So this video has lasted, I think, long enough. With doing the beading and stuff. So I think how I do 1/1 skin, I will have to do another time. Maybe I can film one more stitch with me while I have Winter Queen out. We'll see. So because as you can see, I don't do 1/1 skin, so you get the 4x4 blocks, because if you stitch 1/1 when it's supposed to be 2/2, basically what happens is that one square of the pattern is suddenly divided in 4. So you do 4 stitches for that square. But then since I do 1/1 skin, it gives the option to get like neater lines. So it's not so harsh edges on the shading. So I think it looks more natural doing it this way. So yeah, but that's to explain all of that is gonna be taking a while, and right now I want to keep doing beading because that's what I have on my needle, and since I have pulled everything out and made everything ready, it's nice to just get all of the beading done. So that's what I'm doing. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you found it useful. I hope I showed you that it's not that scary to do, except for the part where I had to frog, which is not the beads being the issue. It's me not counting and looking correctly at the pattern. So yeah, I'm gonna get her a crown, and then maybe if I'm sitting by myself tomorrow or the day after, if I still have Winter Queen out, then I will do a stitch with me with the skin. So if that's something you're interested in, please let me know below, like leave a comment, because then I will try and do that. It's always more encouraging to do something when you know people want to see it than you just assuming that is something people would want to see. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you at another time. Goodbye.